Cause I just wanna win. I don't want it to end. So where do I begin? So I can do it again. And I just gotta win. I don't want it to end. So where do I begin? Cause I can do it again. Cause I just wanna win. Yes, I wanna win. And I just wanna win. I don't want it to end. So where do I begin? So I can do again. Cause I just wanna win. Man, I just gotta win. And yes, I want the very cold winters and the very bad Christmas. Kids who never got the things they ask for on their wish list. We never sat for.
Hey, what's up, everybody? 20th episode of the Cheap Seats Box Show. Angelo here with my boy JP. JP, what's going on, man?
Let's get it.
All right, first things first. Follow us on Twitter. Somebody, please. That sound like a begging guy. Be that person. Follow us on Twitter, Cheap Seats Boxing. Follow us at Cheap Seats Box. We'll be talking, of course, we'll be tweeting out possible score this weekend on the Broner Malignaggi fight. Maybe talking a little shit like I do. But also rate, review, subscribe on iTunes. That helps us move up. Last week, the champ, Devin Alexander, we retweeted about the show, and our numbers jumped way up. Went from like 31 on iTunes to 18. That's the highest we've ever been. So, champ, we appreciate it. Thank you. Also, Stitcher listeners, Podomatic listeners, Windows Phone listeners, and new to our little line where we're trying to hit everything, YouTube.
Let's do it.
Same thing on YouTube. Everything is Cheap Seats Boxing, easy. You can always find us that way. So, last week, let's just say it like this. This show is going to be because it was light and the performance was so good. This is just going to be the Mikey Garcia show. Mikey Garcia knocks out Juan Manuel Lopez in the 4th round. JP, take it away.
I think Roy told him to move his head, and he didn't listen. And Roy told him stop leaning on your front foot, and he didn't listen. And I think because he didn't listen, he needs to go to the James Toney School of announcer listening in the fight.
I'll say one thing real quick. He said it in English, and that's why Juan didn't respond to it. He doesn't understand the English as well as the Spanish, so that's what it was.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe I messed up on that one. Yeah, but I'm gonna go act like he understood it.
Yeah.
Move. But Mikey Garcia, on a positive note, showed why he's a beast. On a negative note, 2 pounds cost him a little bit too much. But
cost him 6 figures and a title.
Yeah, but do you really want to see him up in another weight class?
I know the people in 130 don't want to see him.
I guess it's too late now. I mean, the good thing is, because you know what? I'm going to go back. Juan Manuel Lopez. You were doing good until something snapped. Ciolito snapped something out of you, and I can tell when you're ready to quit. And I can see that on the television. Now, if you can get over that and move your head and not lean on that front foot, you'll be just fine. But just like Roy and Angelo just pointed out, you probably don't understand me right now, so I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah.
Mikey Garcia, just keep doing what you're doing, man. I mean, you're a young man, and sometimes some weights you just can't make. Everybody goes up in weight nowadays because they keep growing. That's naturally why you see people having 4, 5, 6 different belts and 6 different weight classes, because you don't stop growing in your early 20s. You're not gonna stop putting on weight. That's where you're gonna be. You're gonna move up. So let it be what it is, and just knock somebody out at 30.
Yeah. He already called out one guy at 30 was Rocky Martinez.
It's not.
That's the problem with the 130 division. Is just like, how about we call Gamboa to 130 and you fight Gamboa at 130?
That could work. And that's one of the things I
20, 22, 26, pretty stacked.
Mm-hmm.
35 is working there. It could be if everybody's in play. 30, that's just no man's land.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the people in 22 and 26 need to figure something out. And I think the people in 35, you might want to go up to 40.
Yeah, well, that's where all the prize money is right now. Is at 40. The 130 class in 3-4 years could be stacked because you have all them guys
At 22 and up,
22, 26 moving up to 30. But for now, it's just in that flux period of
Right. The only person I don't see moving up in that division is Rigondeaux because he over 30 now. That's probably his weight.
Yeah, well,
22, he could go up just on natural skill.
He can go up, and we'll see what he's made of, and we'll see how much he wants to challenge himself.
Right.
Because you know what? So is Gamboa. Gamboa's the same age as he is. Yeah,
Right.
he keeps on moving up in weight. Look, so
Yeah, but Gamboa built like,
yeah.
and Guillermo built like, yeah, that ain't gonna happen.
But you know what I'm saying. I mean, it's nice and all to lock in to a weight, but the only reason you're going to get on Rigondeaux is because of how highly he thinks of himself. So you need to. You've already done enough. You already did some of the backing up of what you taught.
Right.
So now you have to continue that.
Yeah.
Already called himself the greatest fighter ever.
Hey, well, you know what? I like the confidence. And you know what? To be perfectly honest, I'm going to always give Cuban fighters the benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Because they got to sneak their way here. Just like I keep forgetting the heavyweight that was, he was a heavyweight around the time Ali was a heavyweight.
Stevens.
The one that died recently.
Yeah, Stevens. I think it's Telefields. I can't remember how to say the name. But that was it.
And who knows? That could have been another legendary fighter in that mix because all the people that were in that era were legends.
Mm-hmm.
So,
they all don't get the credit. Some of them get more than they should, and then there are some who just
get less.
Like Richard Briel,
Yeah,
Cuban, but nobody like. But he's an effective. He's an effective guy. He's a hit and hold guy, which is one of the hardest styles to beat, only because of the frustration factor.
Right.
If you can get past the frustration and just stick to it, actually, you can beat him. But to find that fighter who's mentally there to do that, that's tough.
Yeah.
And speaking of Rigondeaux, I wouldn't mind to see him go 126 and fight Mikey Garcia.
I wouldn't mind it either.
Yeah, and a lot of people have kind of like a little dream match almost, with those two, and people are saying, I don't give Mikey a lot of chance, that much of a chance because of what he did to Donaire. But to me, styles make fights.
Yeah.
And just because Donaire may be a superior fighter to Mikey Garcia, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's just going to walk through Mikey Garcia like that. I mean, Mikey Garcia is a beast, and he never stops hitting you with the hook. He never stops coming at you, and that could definitely spell trouble for Rigondeaux. I mean, he's a guy who can get hit, who can get clipped, and he's just a naturally bigger guy than Donaire. Even though Donaire is a big puncher for that weight division, Mikey Garcia is a much bigger fighter than he is, and probably has more power than he does.
That's true. The only thing about it is, I would say, Nito is probably a better fighter than Mikey, but he's not a better boxer. So the question would be, is he better in a chess match than Rigondeaux? And quoting somebody ironic out of this in this conversation is Roger Mayweather. They talked to him about the Mayweather Canelo fight, and they were talking to him about the weight.
Mm-hmm.
And what he basically said was, size don't win fights, skills do. So, I mean, I guess I ain't even gonna get into the part where everybody, you could take that part and run with it however you want to, really, with their fight in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And you could be right on any way you see it. But in Guillermo Rigondeaux's case, in 22 to, say, roughly 30, everybody's pretty much about the same size. Except for him. He's like the run of the litter, but at the same token, if he beat Donaire could easily be a 30.
Mm-hmm.
The way just the size of him when he comes to the ring, because he still had trouble making weight at that weight he was at. He gonna easily be at 26, no problem to me.
Mm-hmm.
So Guillermo want to do it. I think it's nothing really holding him back.
No.
And I think it's a challenge that Mikey would take. I really think it's a challenge that Mares would take. I really think it's like a toss up of who's gonna fight who right now. The only bad thing is that I hope's not happening. I hope, and it's probably not because his brother is real cool. I hope Mikey don't get down about the weight thing, and just I want to fight, but I was feeling unprofessional. You just grew out the class. Don't sweat it. You just move on to the next fight. Bring your A game like you always do, and just let it go.
And if it is true what he said, that he was sick, that he just he couldn't cut it all at the last minute, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then he is still a 126 fight. He thinks he fights. He thinks he can fight in between, because his goal was to win the 130 title while he held the 126 title. He wanted to hold both of them and go back and forth. Now is, like we were talking about Donaire and Mikey, how they differentiate, because Donaire was, when you pull back and you look at the fight now with Rigondeaux, he was set up perfect for Rigondeaux, because you had two guys who do the exact same thing, and he made Donaire fight the fight that wasn't his style. He made him fight Rigondeaux style, like come at me, where he ain't gonna have to do that with Mikey. Mikey will come at him, and he ain't got no problem coming at him, and he ain't got no problem counterpunching, because you leave a lazy jab out there or something like that, Mikey will catch you. He'll
right.
make you pay for it, and he's a lot bigger than him, because like that fight he came in 142.
Right.
That's a big difference. Could he get outboxed? Sure, he could. But But Mikey Garcia to me is way underrated as a boxer. His boxing skills to me are really, really good.
Yeah, I don't question his boxing ability at all. What I mean about him and Rigondeaux is just like when we were talking about Rigondeaux and Donaire. I was like, Rigondeaux has seen it all. Mm-hmm. Donaire, he's knocked out some people, but he hasn't seen it all. So the question was, he eliminated Nonito's best punch. And once he eliminated that punch, Nonito didn't have a backup. I don't think he can be able to do that with Mikey.
Exactly.
I think he can eliminate Mikey's best punch, but it's for Mikey to adjust and go the other way. I think he can do it, but I would love to see the chess matchup.
Absolutely.
You're not doing that. You might do this, but you're not gonna set this one up with that anyway. Mm-hmm. So I would love to see that.
It's the classic, the quote unquote boxer versus puncher,
right?
And I think that's where people will get misled on this fight, where they think, oh yeah, this is classic boxer versus puncher, but it's not true, because Mikey is a good boxer on top of being a puncher. That's where I say the style is different. It's a different style matchup than the Donaire matchup. I think he actually, to me, it really is a toss-up. That would be a toss-up fight. A lot of people who love boxing, just the hit and not be hit thing, they hardly ever give the fighter a chance against a boxer. But, you know, there's a reason that the pound for pound is filled with both fighters and boxers. Because if you're excellent at one or the other, you're going to be one of the best fighters in the world. And to me, Mikey is there. Rigondeaux is definitely there with his performance against Donaire. Mares is there. And that's another guy. And kudos to Mares, because Mares pulled out his hit list. He said he wants one of 4 guys. The fourth guy, to me, is a throwaway, and it's only because he's been talking shit about him.
I forgot myself.
Yeah. Oh, God, I can't.
26, right?
Yeah.
Real?
No.
John?
The young guy. You know what I'm talking about, what do they call it, the prospect of the year or whatever, last year.
Come on.
This is what happens when you do it live and you can't get no computer to look it up.
Yeah.
But, so, Mares calls out. He goes, I want Donaire. I want Mikey Garcia. I want Guillermo Rigondeaux. Give me any of them. And then the last one, which I can't think of. God, it's going to kill me.
You just going to Google it and get back to you.
But you got to love Abner Mares for that, because he didn't throw, like, some bogus name in there. I mean, in those divisions, there ain't nobody better than those guys.
And the best part about him is he is a well-rounded fighter. You can't. He can change styles on a dime.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and he'll kill the body. And that's one thing that against Rigondeaux, say they get a dream matchup, Mares versus Rigondeaux. That's one thing that Rigondeaux hasn't had, is that guy who's going to kill the body for 12 rounds. That's one thing you don't get in the amateurs. The one thing you say, you haven't seen is you haven't seen somebody kill your body for 8, 10, 12 rounds. You've never seen, because you only get 3 rounds, so you don't have to worry about the accumulation. So that could make for an interesting thing, man. But, Mares, Gary Russell Jr. That's who I was thinking about.
There you go.
Gary Russell Jr. was the other name we were thinking about. And the only reason that Mares put him on his hit list is because, and take nothing away, because Gary Russell Jr. is a good fighter. But he still hasn't got to that level yet, which people were like, well, why would Mares calling him out? Because Gary Russ calling out, Abner Mares, easy work. Okay.
Well, and you know what? And that's something, I would say that's something that Gary Russell Jr. needs. Because him and there's a few other fighters who, some did it to themselves, and some of them just circumstances where they need to fight better competition. Because you go from being a great prospect to a guy who's just fighting B-class fighters. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that he was talking that. Now the question is, can he back it up and is he ready for it?
Because we know Mares can back it up.
Right.
The difference is, you go with Mares versus Russell. Russell would be taking about 3 steps up in class from what he's seen.
Right.
And Russell would be about the 6th to 7th best fighter that Mares has faced as far as credentials wise. Now, I'm not talking about the skill, just
right
where people would put you lined up with these guys based on what you've accomplished. You would be 6th, 7th, maybe even 8th on his list. So that is a huge step up. Can you make that jump?
And Mares has no way to say this other than this. Mares has a Mayweather advantage, because it's like, okay, you're good. You think I haven't beat people I think better than you? Beat a bunch of people who I think are better than you. So what are you going to do? What you think you're going to do that they couldn't do? And that's a big mountain to climb. Now, does Gary Russell have a good skill set? He has a great skill set. But it is a perfect thing. He does have to up his competition. Mm-hmm. Now,
and there was we can go right. That can lead us right to the undercard.
Yes,
because that's another guy, Terrence Crawford. gets what was it? I don't even know what round it was.
6 or 4?
6. I think it's 6 because the 4th was the Mikey Garcia who knocked him out in the 4th. So 6-round knockout for Terrence Crawford over.
Oh man, I forgot his name.
Sanabria.
Yes, junior, right?
Nah, I don't know.
He was a junior.
Now, here we go with it. Crawford is another guy who needs to step it up. It cracked me up how bad HBO was trying to pump up Sanabria, right? He fought all these places in Mexico that I never knew existed. He has all these wins that I never knew about. And I was telling JP, it's like the scene in Major League when Bob Uecker's talking about Charlie Sheen. I don't know where Vaughn played last year, but I'm sure he did a hell of a job. And that's all they can say about Sanabria. I don't know where he fought last time, but I'm sure he did a hell of a job. This guy's 31-1. Great.
Well,
will we ever see him on HBO again? Probably not.
But you know what? I will say I liked him. I looked at him as like, okay, they might not necessarily be in the same class, but if this dude gets some good training, he gonna be good.
And like what I told you, was Sanabria better than they thought he was even, or is Crawford not necessarily as good as they've been hyping him as? He's already the best 135 fighter. Well, we'll see.
I would relate it to when guys go to college and they play sports, and somebody's the hyped up All-American from high school, and somebody's just the guy that they gave a scholarship at the last minute, and you wind up looking at him like, okay, you the one that's supposed to be this good.
Yeah.
This guy over here. Now, once you start coaching him, then it's like, well, how did you wind up being way better than him? Because, like Crawford, I think Crawford's good too. But he, like you said, he needs to up his competition too, because it goes to a point where if you stagnate yourself, once you go up, because once you go up in talent, there ain't no going back down. But if you hold on to it so long, well, they got to beat you back down.
Gamboa has proven that he's went back down. The competition hasn't looked good.
Yeah, I mean, but
ever since the Salido went, yeah.
But his career has been so roller coaster the last 3 years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If he doesn't step it up, he could stagnate his career and his growth.
Yeah, but these other guys don't have the plethora of problems that Gamboa had the last 2 years. These guys have no excuses. They can't say, fights broken down, promoters broken down, people been holding me down, and contractual issues. They can't say none of that.
Yeah.
They're just, why did you pick this guy? I saw him at a Steak and Shake, and I figured I could beat him. Well, that part. Now some people need to, you groom along, take time, because remember, even Andre Ward went from the goal that took him almost a decade for everybody to get noticed. But when he stepped up his competition, he didn't play. Yeah,
because he was part of the 96 team. Was it Ward?
No,
2000 team.
I think 2000. Because he was the last one to win gold.
Yeah.
So I mean, once he stepped it up, that was it. These other guys, you can't have all this hype behind you and all this. He got great things ahead of you and just be 25. 35, 40 fights in of nobodies. At least do what I would say Canelo and Khan and people like that do. At least get you some guys that are older in the business. And the same thing with Danny Garcia. Get some guys that are older in the business. Get a few names, and it gets you confidence, because no matter what you say, those guys who they beat, whether you feel like they passed their prime or they washed, they were or are champions.
Because you're looking across at the ring, you're like, I seen that guy on TV many times.
And you never question a champion's heart. Even when you think they washed, because there have been plenty of times in boxing where a washed fighter just did like, oh, he still got it. He still had that in the tank. So
Zab Judah almost did that to Danny Garcia.
Exactly. So do something about your competition.
how long can you live off? I handled Mikey Garcia in the amateurs. That's only going to carry you so long. And when that will circle back to what you said about Mikey Garcia's psyche. To me, his psyche is he'd be fine because he was the one who got Terrence Crawford signed to the promotion. He goes, this guy beat me in the amateurs easily. I want you to sign him. He didn't say, oh, don't mess with that guy. He beat me, so I don't want nothing to do with him. Right. He's like, bring him on. Let's do it. You know what I mean? So that tells me his psyche is he losing the title, the 2 pounds, the $100,000 ain't gonna be no deal to him.
And that's a good way. It's not how you fall down. That's how you bounce back.
What's that smell?
And by the way, that smell was me. Goddamn, I just got off work and it's hot as shit.
All work is easy work. Don't worry about it.
That's it, man.
But that's where Gary Russell has the problem. Because I always say this about rematches. It's never the person you have to watch in a rematch is the person who lost the first time. So
you talking about Crawford?
If Crawford fought Garcia, if Russell fought Garcia, the way Mikey Garcia look at it, like, yeah, I know how you beat me the first time.
Mm-hmm.
1, you motivated me to get better. 2, nah, I'm better than you. So I don't have to step my game up now. Now I'm gonna give you the whipping that you felt like you put on me 5-10 years ago. So it's not like you're not saying anything.
Yeah.
But I mean, for Russell, it's a good promotional ploy. If you really want that challenge, cool.
Yeah.
Crawford's like, look, man, I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
Man. No. And you could tell, like, if he's at a stage where, because he's Omaha, Nebraska, if he was from somewhere else, he'd get a shorter leash.
Mm-hmm.
But because he's fighting out of Omaha, let's be real. Like, it's like fighting out of Idaho. Like, for real? Mm-hmm. Get this guy an opportunity. We haven't seen this. So, they're going to give him a little bit more leeway, but he ain't got much left.
No, they got to find the next step up for him at 135.
What weight class was that young guy who was knocking out people in the first round? The dude that graduated from the University of Texas or Austin. He fought on the undercard of the Canelo Trout fight. In his last 3 fights, he knocked people out in the first round, and he knocked this guy out in the first round.
Honestly, I don't know.
Oh,
and I was on the Canelo Trout undercard.
He was the first guy, and it was like he 3 out of his last 4 fights, he knocked the guy out in the first round. He came in and he beat up some Puerto Rican fighter, hit him in the body. Dude said, "That's it."
Mm.
And he's around that weight class. He is around that weight class.
35. There's a few fights out there. I mean,
Ricky Burns is the only.
Ricky Burns, Vasquez.
It's only Gamboa and
Gamboa,
and nobody knows what Broner's going to do.
No. So. Still, the guy that Broner beat, his only.
I hope we ain't talking about Gavin Reese.
No. That wouldn't be bad actually to step up.
Oh.
But DeMarco.
Okay.
That would be a guy to get him in there. Let's see where he's at.
Because that's a legitimate fighter.
And you should beat DeMarco. You should beat him. If you're the best at 135, there's no reason why you shouldn't, right?
If you got to prove it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. You have to prove it. So you put him in there against him, and you see if he really is going to be the best, or have a chance to approach that at 135. Like I was saying, man, I was telling you earlier this week that Kellerman, there's something about Kellerman and the way he just loves him that it makes me not like this guy, and it has nothing to do with the boxer himself. It's kind of like dealing with Cowboy fans sometimes. You're just like, man, I used to not even care about the Cowboys as much, but I even hate them more because of the way you talk about them. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, somebody's got to be. The one thing I do love about hyping people up is this. The minute you hype somebody up, the pressure's on them to show up. But also the minute you hype somebody up, there's a fighter that probably deserves it, who you ain't giving it to, who going to earn it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can hype all these other guys up if you want. Some of them gonna show up, some of them not. But you gonna get a Winky Wright just coming out of nowhere, and just demolish people. So keep up the good work, but don't act like you was a fan of this next young up and coming stud who you never mentioned.
I would just like for them to be, especially Kellerman. God, he's such a fanboy on there. I know he is so giddy just sitting next to Roy Jones, sitting next to Andre Ward during these fights.
Hey, y'all must have forgot.
He's just staring at him like gazingly into his eyes.
I don't think they want that.
The only thing that would make him more excited is if they actually put Pernell Whitaker next to him. But Kellerman has a way of making you dislike certain guys. I'm sorry, but
I like Kellerman just for the face-off at the table alone, because it is so hilarious. Because he's like, I don't know how I'm gonna start a fight with these guys. I really don't.
Yeah.
It's so classy, but at the same time, it's like you're supposed to be starting trouble, aren't you? So I want these guys to do whatever they need to do, because somebody's gonna become a villain. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I think Broner's fast on his way to be the villain right now. Mm-hmm. I think if Kareem Mayfield can get a fight of major proportions and dominate somebody, I think he'll be a fast rising villain. Because we need heels now.
Keith Thurman.
Yes, he could definitely be a villain.
Gary Russell obviously is he's setting himself up to be that guy. If you're going to come out and start talking about easy work, about people who are already much better than you at almost the exact same age.
You're right. Well, he doesn't have the...
Yeah, Thurman does.
Yeah.
How he was trying to get at Paulie after his last fight.
Right. When I think I think Gary Russell Jr. is a great fighter, but when I think of him as a heel, I can't see it.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I can see if you try, if you're working at it. Yeah. Hey, practice makes perfect. Practice on
it. That goes like what I was saying about Crawford. Like it makes me dislike him the way Kellerman talks about him. But he's not a bad guy. He seems to be a real humble dude. So you can't. Like you like when you're watching a fight, you're like, God, dog, man, hit this guy hard, please, and put him on his ass, please. And then you see him in the interviews afterwards, you're like, oh, this dude's all right. You know what I mean?
He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
You said some things, you said 2-minute things, and I don't like it.
See, a true heel is like you want him to get knocked on his ass during the fight like Broner, and then after the fight you want him to get knocked even harder on his ass after the fight after he wins. It's like
you gotta if you're gonna be like, you gotta commit to it. And I'm not saying these guys have to be that as a person, but I gotta admit, we need more villains. We need a Bernard Hopkins school of villains.
You don't even need to be a villain as much as you need to be a character, though. Definitely a character, because a character will get you there. Like
this next fight coming up.
Yeah, that's true. Before we get to that, what I was going to say is, when I talk about characters, like Prince Nassim. Was a character. Was he necessarily him? Not really.
But people
hated him, but when he talked, he would just crack you up, because the things that he said just didn't make any sense compared to what the question you asked. Prince, what happened in the third round when he caught you?
My hair looks good.
My hair looks so good. And it's like, what? What the hell? But they talking about?
For me, that makes you the villain, because it's like, excuse me, what you asking me questions about me winning? Mm-hmm. You know what? I got nice shoes on today.
But when you come out on a flying carpet,
oh yes, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Sometimes it's like, it's not a villain thing, like that's just cool.
I mean, and people need to do that more often. Like, what happened to? I remember he came out on the carpet. He came out with the guys carrying him before. I think Floyd came out with the guys carrying him before. I think the Trojan thing. Mm-hmm. You did one of the you said the most disrespectful thing in boxing when he came out with the Mexican flag.
Yeah, the sombrero backwards.
I think.
See, that makes you heels when you disrespect
Right.
it.
Hold on. When Hopkins threw the flag down and stepped, you need to. If you got, because all these guys say they want to be the best and they want to be rich. Well, I hate to tell y'all this, but Muhammad Ali learned it from a wrestler, right? You see Mayweather hanging out with wrestlers every now and then. You have to offend people. You see, people who gonna like you are already gonna like you. You gotta make a lot of people hate you. I need to see him get killed out there. So how do you do that? You offend somebody.
But like you were saying, villain definitely in the next fight. Actually, if you really listen to him talk, two villains. But one guy, it's like heel versus heel. So who are the fans going to go for more? And they're going to go for Paulie Malignaggi more this weekend against Adrian Broner.
It reminds me of The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. They're both the villain, but you know what? Don't stop talking and just start fighting.
And we always bring this back to wrestling because it's the easiest way to go with the heel and baby face. You got two heels, right? But one of the heels is fighting at home, which makes him the baby face, which makes him the good guy. Paulie's at home. You can for a guy like me, you can only hope that he somehow ekes out a split decision victory because that's his only hope. Broner is such a heel. It could lead to other things, but here's the things that I've been hearing this week is they're saying if somehow Paulie squeaked out a victory, he could get a fight with Roy. I mean, with Floyd. With Floyd.
Well, y'all must have forgot.
Yeah,
I gotta say it one time.
with Floyd.
I mean, that's not gonna happen. I would say if Paulie wins, even though he has a solid career, he solidifies it. If Broner wins, this means there is no going back. There's no going back to no Gavin Reese's out the blue. Everybody from here on out got to be legit. And which he says he's ready for it, so take on that thing. Now, in the interim, I will say the question isn't, because everybody favors Broner, the question isn't, is he going to win? The question is, really, is that power going to translate when you jump 2 weight classes? Because now if it translates the same, then if he goes back down, that's a problem for everybody, for real. If it doesn't, then it's like, at this particular point, 35 to 40, which 40 is a good look anyways. Because Malignaggi he's not the hardest puncher, but don't get it twisted. He's a tough dude.
Yeah,
so he'll take a beating if he got to take a beating to get a win. So
he took a beating from Cotto, took a beating from Hatton. I don't think Broner's power will come. He'll carry that power up with him. It'll be an accumulative effect. Who at 147 do you think he could knock out with a couple of good shots? Like he did at 135, where he could.
I want to say it, but I'm not.
Which one?
Man with the soft neck.
Are you talking about Amir?
Yeah.
Amir Khan. Okay, besides Amir Khan, I mean, who hasn't even fought yet at 147.
He ain't gonna stay at 40. He keeps it up. Really nobody, because everybody got good chins. I can't think of a 47 fighter right now who, even if they've been knocked down, have been completely just leveled. I think they got rid of all of them guys. The last person I seen get dropped was
Manny.
Yeah, I was trying to skip that one. Before that was Hatton.
Yeah.
So, everybody else, I mean, it's really like that. That's why that weight class is one of the best, because except for that knockout with Manny, we done seen some people get rocked at 47 and stand. We done seen the Provodnikov. We done seen Rios hit people. We done seen Juan. Yeah. Forget the knockout. Remember the knockdown from that sweeping, whatever, straight right, super hook, whatever that was. We seen who just fought recently. It wasn't like Floyd he didn't break his hand, but when he injured it, it started looking ugly, and that like 8th, 9th round because he started picking them apart ugly, and Guerrero took some shots in that one, but I haven't seen anybody really just one punch a guy at that level anymore.
I'm trying to think. Also, you know what goes into it? Besides Manny, really, honestly, and I know he got knocked out, whatever, but besides Manny at 147, there hasn't been a one-punch guy in that division, though. There has in a few years. I'm trying to really think who's a one, because Manny was a guy who could really, with one punch, take you out.
Right.
And he is. Alexander's not that guy. Floyd's not that guy. Broner's not that guy. Malignaggi's not that guy. Cotto wasn't that guy. Even Margarito wasn't that guy. Even at his best, he was an accumulative guy. Hatton's wasn't that guy. So I mean, that we're like,
the last time we probably saw that was Hearns or Hagler.
Yeah.
Just before this era, because we got a great era of boxers right now. I mean,
around that size.
Oh, was it the Hawk? The Hawk, Julian
Jackson?
He was around that size.
I want to say 54. I don't know. It's been so long. Yeah, that guy was just a beast of a puncher, man. One of the greatest pound-for-pound punches you'll ever see in your life. That's what I'm saying. So that would be the only way Broner would get, to me, anything out of this fight. For me, winning the fight doesn't do anything for him, in my eyes, for him. Great, you got a belt, and your next fight's going to be against Shane Mosley, which will get you to nothing as far as I'm concerned. So the only way for me that I come out of this fight feeling better about Broner is if he was somehow to carry that powder up. Like his power got, because of the weight, and he didn't have to cut so much, that he's even stronger in there. And say he took out Paulie in 3 rounds. Then you would be impressed.
Right.
Because Paulie, whatever you want to say about him, takes a good ass with him.
He's a tough dude.
He is. And he, especially in front of the home crowd, he's going to take every last punch that he can.
That same crowd that made Zab not quit.
Exactly.
So, and it's home, it's going to be a problem. But this is also one of those fights where Paulie could win even when he loses, just by doing the same thing that Zab Judah did.
Yeah.
And this could be a fight where if Broner wins, it's very interesting because you're susceptible now. Because for one, you're in a 47 weight class, you're going to take on tougher opponents. For two, you're in a 35 weight class. You're going to have to defend that title, or you're going to hold on to both of them and keep jumping 2 weight classes.
That's too much.
Exactly. So that reminds me of when people used to say, credit Tarver for that, the win, but at the same token, they'd be like, Tarver stayed at that weight. He wasn't the one losing 25 pounds and jumping up and down. I know we talked about it before, but but at the same time, that whether it's an excuse or explanation, it still looms over the head of him. So that draining and gaining, at some point, if you're doing both, is going to catch up to you. So
it's funny because you talk here, we were just kind of jumping all over, but the Tarver thing, he didn't get as much credit for the Roy thing because Roy went up to 190 for the title fight, heavyweight, came back down to 175, but didn't stop people from giving Bernard credit when Tarver ballooned up to 220 something for the Rocky movie, which he did balloon up. He ballooned up to 25 pounds for the Rocky movie, came back down, defended against Bernard, Bernard got all the credit in the world for it. So, I mean, and I know because Bernard was 85 years old, but...
Because people don't take, just like when Roy got knocked out, they say that's one part of your problem. Once you get in the movies, you get in all Hollywood, you got solved. But, I want greatness. Should we move on to the...
We're going to move on to the undercard. The rematch, Seth Mitchell, Jonathan Banks.
Seth Mitchell's going to have to...
Banks knocked him out in what?
Second round.
Second round, okay.
Either he's going to have to knock him out with a devastatingly, or he's going to have to put on a clinic. Because
I think
they were putting him on like he was on the cusp. And it's okay. He took a loss. Fine, he took a loss. But how you respond from that is one thing. And though I like guys who have the reach advantage, I also like guys who lost the first shot when they get a rematch, because normally a person doesn't beat you twice in a row.
But not in the heavyweight's different, especially when you get knocked out. It didn't help Roy. After getting knocked out, I'm trying to think of who got knocked out and then came back, and I mean, you don't see it come back from the knockout. We'll see.
Back in 1546.
Yeah, I know. But you got to give Banks. Of course, you got to give him the
credit,
the advantage too in this fight. He's a guy who stays in the gym. He works with the Klitschko's.
Yeah.
He worked with Manny Stewart, right?
He was his understudy.
Right, he was with Manny Stewart, though, right? Crunk Gym. I got to go with the guy who's got a little bit experience. I mean, because Seth Mitchell was beating guys with athleticism,
right? And
when you get in there against a semi-legit, and in today's heavyweight boxing, if you're semi-legit, then you are legit at this point. I don't see why it goes any differently, because Mitchell looks to be a little chinny. Got hurt in the fight before the Banks fight. Got hurt. Came back, won the fight, but got hurt.
He did get rocked.
Yeah. If that starts to become a pattern, then this guy ain't got much of a chance in the heavyweight division. But I would almost want to see Banks win. That way he has 2 legitimate wins on his credit. And maybe we get an American heavyweight that's actually got a legit shot at something. Could he fight, what was the guy who just beat Areola?
Oh, the Haitian cat.
Don King's got it.
I can't think his name either.
Why not?
Them two go at it?
Go at it.
That could be a good fight.
You know what I mean?
But I think that Haitian guy will win at this point.
Yeah,
I think he's a better boxer.
He's not going to get a title. You know Banks ain't going to get a title shot.
And that's
and the only reason is because he's so close with the Klitschko's. He's not going to fight those guys. The other champion is Povetkin, right? He's supposed to be fighting Vlad, so he's kind of locked in right now to nothing.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
Because to be perfectly honest, if I recall correctly, if Seth Mitchell would have beat Jonathan Banks the first time, he was going to get a title shot. Mm-hmm. So Banks wins, and it's just
it was a fluke. Look, he knocked him out.
Right.
Make him do it again.
Right.
And then what happens if he goes in and does it again?
Exactly.
Somebody's got to give him a shot.
So,
you know what? How about this? How about if because the Vlad and Povetkin fight hasn't been really, the negotiations haven't been going well with the Povetkin getting the purse bid on it, right, for the site. So they're fighting, and all the testing they're complaining about. If that fight falls through, let him get a shot at Povetkin.
I'll go for it. I mean, I'm gonna be honest.
It would be nice to actually have an American heavyweight champion.
I'm not sold on having an American heavyweight champion right now, because I'm still gonna say this, and I mean this with every fiber of my being. Yeah, they just don't look serious. They don't look like they taking they craft seriously. I've never seen an era with so many obese looking heavyweights. Mm-hmm. Never. I mean, these guys look. how? Okay, I'm not saying you got to have weight training. I'm not saying you got to be a bodybuilder.
Mm-hmm.
What I am saying is,
coming into shape.
look like you've been
You put the work
in the gym.
Yeah, you put the time in the gym before the fight.
These guys just showing up. It was a guy who remember on the undercard last week. His name was Sherman the Tank Williams.
Yeah, on the undercard.
And
On Showtime.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this guy like,
If I'm not mistaken, wasn't he like 5'11", and like was even shorter than that? He may even be shorter than that.
this was the fluffiest tank I ever
Like
seen in my life.
245 pounds. He may have been only like 5'8", 5'9".
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
These guys need to take. I mean, if you're doing that for a living, make it look like okay. And this is exactly what I mean. Mike Tyson looks what? A little overweight and out of shape. But the problem is, Mike Tyson looks about the shape of most of these heavyweights right now.
Right now, yeah.
Now, this ain't Mike Tyson from the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are in your 20s looking like a former ex-champ. You trying to tell me right now that George Foreman looks better than most of these heavyweights.
You know what? That's funny. I know the weights are totally different, but you're in your 20s, you're a heavyweight boxer, look like you've been in the gym. Do you remember on the 24/7, Chavez Jr. and Sergio, and they showed Senior on the
bag?
No. He was on the treadmill,
Right.
Great shape at 51 years old, something like that. Great shape, 50 years old, and it looked like he could fight still if he wanted to. And yet these guys
Are fighting.
and they just come on, man.
I mean, I really can't. I really have no utter respect. Like, I do not even. I can't ride with the Klitschko's completely.
Me either.
But I can tell you one thing. Right now, I bet on the Klitschko every time. Every time. You fighting who? Is he a heavyweight? Yeah, I'm going with Klitschko.
I want to see now because, Banks was supposed to be basically a throwing guy for Mitchell.
Right.
So he wins, and they throwing him back in. Let's test him out again. I want to see if there's a little bit of transformation in the body type. Would it come in even better shape? Because now you're the guy who the younger guys shooting for. So you need to take that upon yourself. Like, okay, I'm coming into my own. I'm not just a sparring partner anymore. I'm not just a corner man anymore. I'm a heavyweight contender. Let's see if he takes it seriously enough to come into that kind of shape.
And I'm going to say this about Seth Mitchell. On one end, I like him. Okay? If you want to take on a professional sport at that late and go for it, no holds barred, and be successful, I gotta respect that. On another end, I question something. Is he chinny like you said, or is it he was a football player because he was a linebacker? See, he wasn't taking headshots for a long time. People just don't equate one to the other.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah,
but the other thing is, I got questions about his weight too because I don't see linebackers carrying all that extra weight like that. I don't. You telling me you played linebacker and you turn around and be a boxer? Ray Lewis about 37 years old. He don't look that out of shape.
No.
I saw London Fletcher. He don't look that out of shape. And I know these guys we talking about professional players, but he's still at least 10 years younger than both of those guys. So what are you doing? Like, boxing is one of the boxing and wrestling, what for what in difficult. And the training for it is crazy. So you shouldn't look out of shape. You shouldn't. I mean, you got James Toney exceptions, but we got a lot of exceptions.
Yeah. They're becoming the rule.
Yeah, this is a supersize me heavyweight division.
Yup. I think the way, maybe the way they could get rid of it is to bring in the super heavyweight division. So you know what I mean? Only because you put a limit at like 225
And
for the heavyweight title, and over, or 230, whatever, and anything over is a super heavyweight title.
you know that's a great idea, right?
It is a great idea. God dang it. We're good at this, man. I'm telling you. But maybe that they get a go, okay, well, maybe I can't compete with the Klitschko's. I come down and get this 230 title. Maybe you got to like put stuff out for them to get them into the gym and to actually get into shape, to actually cut some weight and get in at a good fighting shape.
And I'm going to be so wrong when I say this. And I mean wrong as in terrible. Yeah. Even when you're saying that. And I like it. Do you remember about 10, 15 years ago why Butterbean was an anomaly?
Yeah. Because it was a big fat guy just knocking people out.
This, as a comedian said, that's what I'm talking about. These guys don't even have Butterbean swagger.
No. King of the 4-rounders.
That's all. If you gonna come in, you gotta come in swinging that gut, baby. You gotta come in like the Blob on the Wolverine episode. Mm-hmm. But gotta do something, man. Y'all gotta get in shape, man.
Yeah, and that pretty much wraps up the heavyweight division. You start off, this should be a good fight, and it turns right into, man, the heavyweight division sucks. And especially the American side of the heavyweight division, because at least the Euros, they got people who like keep you interested in fights, like Tyson Fury, because he talks that shit. David Haye can always talk that good shit,
he looks in shape.
And they're supposed to be fighting each other, Fury and Haye. So that should actually be a good fight. And they even got the guy just got knocked out. David Price getting ready to fight again. He's in the rematch to see if he can come back. Even the UK has got their heavyweight contenders. We got nothing. We got Banks Mitchell too.
Wait a minute. Hold up. Wait a minute. So you telling me David Haye looks in shape?
Mm-hmm.
Tyson Fury just looks like a big basketball player, boxing.
Yeah.
I can even go and say this. Lennox Lewis might be announcing, and he still look like he could fight.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to watch Jonathan Banks, who looked like he could play basketball too, but he got that gut titty thing going. And Seth Mitchell looked like a linebacker who converted to defensive tackle.
Yeah, he looked like he used to play football, but I'm not sure.
He wasn't no linebacker.